Merry Christmas, you filthy animal. It's HermitCraft, Season 8, live for Saturday, the 18th of December, 2021. Do.
I want a girl who will mine for her diamonds. I want a girl who can sort a chest. I want a girl with shears that cut and swords that burn through zombie flesh. I want a girl who knows world generation, who crafts furrows and times her attack. She's modding her community. She's flying through the air. She's smelting out impurities and feeding her cat. I want a girl with a lectern and a full cauldron. I want a girl who logs in early. I want a girl who plays till late. I want a girl with unobstructed creativity who uses a tripwire to ruin your day. With shulker boxes organized and lustrous in a tone that will torch you like desert grass. Who crafts furrows and times her attack. She's smelting out impurities and feeding her cat. I want a girl with a lectern and a full cauldron. Whose shield is emblazoned. I want a girl with good enchantments. On some server we will meet incidentally. We'll start to talk as we shoot skeletons. She wants a spawn with biome convenience. She wants a spawn that's in good repair. She's changing her end from wither to dragon. She's trading her archery for a trident that's self-repairing. I want a girl with a lectern and a full cauldron. Who's the guy who conquers death? The mister with the whispers when Mumbo forgets. After introducing Pearl and Gem to say we're settling a continent. Shoulder to shoulder, surrounded by water, beyond which reset, risk your face if you wanna. We live close, we build close, we speak in proximity. Season 8's here today, still in its infancy. Mumbo is saying go, everyone's cheering. Suddenly scattering, always unfearing. Though it passed by without Mumbo mentioning, there's a crew, you know who to keep you adventuring. Asuma securing villagers. Pearl on fine architecture. Joe grabbing supplies, ready to throw at the first fools who die. Bring on the creepers, bring on the flames. The resupply crew will get you going again. The very first to die, B-double-O, don't cry. Pops and quite chagrin, takes some apples and he flies. Zombie Cleo's next, needs an axe for the road. Geared up and cheered up, she's off with some lows. Gemini and Tay appears slain by Jevin. But B-dubs is back before Joe loads the first chest in. Then Pearl's killed by Cleo, who Joe had armed previously. Then Cleo's dead too per Isco mischievously. Impulse SV got blown up by a creeper. Says he won't be back, but how can he be sure? Bring on the creepers, bring on the flames. The resupply crew will get you going again. The resupply crew. Asuma laddering a mine shaft.
The resupply crew.
Pearl egging a shell.
The resupply crew.
Joe lavaing a portal. Yo, you're immortal, here's a doorway to hell.
Who's the guy? Who's the guy?
Who's the guy who struck his first die encircled suddenly by three of his friends? Tango, Corrales, and B-double-O, all armed and armored to shake down Joe. Threats bacon triplicate fully surrounded. Joe took to the sky with Cobble unbounded. Lava to dump on the brigands below, or on himself. This direction, let's go! Heading down to somewhere with coordinates in hand. Bridging and a tunneling connecting flower forest land. Cleo is away, so Joe leaves her a saddle. He hopes as he does she won't use it for battle. Returning to world spawn and lighting his tunnel, he keeps striking lava and dies a whole bundle. And drowns hunting squids, though he tried his best. But no worries, back at world spawn there's a resupply chest. Bring on the creepers, bring on the flames. The resupply crew will get you going again. One chest becomes four, labeled in stock. The shell thickens yet with smooth sandstone block. Bushes are placed, ravines are filled in. Also the hermits could keep adventuring. If dying is losing, then living is winning. Episode's done, but the show's just beginning. Pick up some tools, some potatoes and steak, and show 'em you're real, give 'em season 8. The summer is past, but your days keep growing longer. There's no wind in your sails, but the storm's blowing stronger. Walking hard, standing tall, keeping your head up through it all. Fighting fires, spinning plates. Goodness, how did it get so late? Lay your head down and dream. Lay your head down and lay your head down and dream. Lay your head down and just let your mind flow downstream. Spread out in a moonbeam. Lay your head down and dream. Joe Hills is filmed before a live streaming audience.
That's us! Ho ho, howdy y'all, Joe Hills here, recording as I always do in Nashville, Tennessee, and tonight, y'all are my live streaming audience. We have 4 kind of weird streams coming up. You know, hold on, I'm talking to Mr. Hardluck right now about appearing tomorrow as the Ghost of Christmas Present. Today, we are going to have Badger Spanner appearing as the Ghost of Christmas Past. We're going to not probably have a guest for the Ghost of Christmas Future on account of them only pointing. But, yeah, I wanted to do a little bit of a fun kind of Christmas thing. So, if you've never seen A Christmas Carol before, it's written by Charles Dickens. It's a Christmas classic. It's a ghost story. It's got everything. It's got greed. It's got chains. It's got British people. I don't know. Hold on. Boom. Okay, trying to get Mr. Hardluck locked in for that Christmas ghost thing tomorrow, getting him the details. Sorry, I'm a little bit behind on everything because I got kind of set back by getting sick with COVID right after Thanksgiving, and things have been wild. We're playing catch up, but here we are. We're going to get some of the fun holiday season stuff that I wanted to get done. Christmas Carol is broken into 5 staves. The first one is Marley's Ghost. The second is the Ghost of Christmas Past. Third stave we'll do tomorrow night. That's Ghost of Christmas Present. And we're going to have Mr. Hardluck, wrestler. He's got that good stage voice, you know. He's not The Rock. I don't know what his tagline is. It might be something like, "Can you tell what the heart is lucking?" I don't know. But anyway, Mr. Hardluck actual wrestler is going to be coming in and playing the Ghost of Christmas Present. We just locked that down literally while I was doing this intro. Centauratron says, I don't know what a stave is. Well, this story has 5 staves, and it's kind of like a subdivision of the story. Other stories might call those chapters or acts or something like that. But anyway, so Mr. Hardluck is going to be joining us tomorrow to play the Ghost of Christmas Present. Badger Spanner is going to be joining us tonight to play the Ghost of Christmas Past. I'm going to be doing my Scrooge voice this year. Every year I kind of do a different Scrooge voice. The first year I think I did it in kind of my original, like, howdy, Joe Hill's here voice. And then last year I did it in the Beetlejuice voice. And that worked pretty interestingly because it's kind of grumpy and whatever. But this time I'm going to be doing it as Ted Theodore Logan, and I did some experimenting with that. It works way better with the text than you would expect, and it is going to be so much fun. Okay, so you might think, if we're doing Stave 1 and 2 tonight, Stave 3 Sunday, well, Monday, that'll be the finale. Well, the thing is, Monday, I've got my friend who has all sorts of Guardians of the Galaxy cosplay gear, bringing his cosplay gear to my apartment so we can stream Guardians of the Galaxy pinball in, like, Ravager outfits. And that's going to be a really fun stream. So we're going to take a break from the Christmas Carol Monday. Tuesday night is my Pathfinder night, and we'll do the Ghost of Christmas Future and the finale of the Christmas Carol on Wednesday night. So we're going to kind of have it a little bit split up. Sorry about that. That's just kind of how the schedule ended up working out. So it's going to be really fun. Yeah, we are going to be reading the original text as written by Dickens. We are not reading the Disney modern version. This is just how it is. One thing I'm going to do is I'm going to change the setting up color here for the shadow to be a little bit more Christmassy. Let's get a pine green in there. Boom. There we go. There we go. And let's maybe put a space between tips and R. That makes sense. Maybe not a new line, but yeah. Boom. So just so you know, during this stream, I am still going to be doing the face camera expansions and the abacus, but I'm going to be waiting for logical breaks in the text to do it. I'm not going to just be going, like, in the middle of a sentence. So no, you're not going to be singing the Muppet song tomorrow. Sorry there, Mr. Hardluck. But okay. We are basically about ready to start. Let's make sure we didn't get any tips rolling in, because I did want to read those before we get started. Nope, nobody wants to tip until the show starts. That's fair. So I guess we're going to go ahead and get the show started. So let's go ahead and pull that up now. So here we go. Charles Dickens writes in the preface, I have endeavored in this ghostly little book to raise the ghost of an idea which shall not put my readers out of humor with themselves, with each other, with the season, or with me. May it haunt their houses pleasantly, and no one wish to lay it. Their faithful friend and servant, Charles Dickens. So here we go. Stave 1, Marley's Ghost. Marley was dead, to begin with. There is no doubt whatever about that. The register of his burial was signed by the clergyman, the clerk, the undertaker, and the chief mourner. Scrooge signed it, and Scrooge's name was good as gold. Dang it. Sorry, I'm like, my brain, I'm still setting up. I realized I don't have one of the chats open. We're gonna do a quick reset. Sorry, Discord chat. I had that talk with Hardluck open, so I couldn't see your words. There we go. Okay. Let's start this over. Take a sip of my drink. Get my brain going. Okay, here we go. Marley was dead to begin with. There is no doubt whatever about that. The register of his burial was signed by the clergyman, the clerk, the undertaker, and the chief mourner. Scrooge signed it, and Scrooge's name was good upon change for anything he chose to put his hand to. Old Marley was as dead as a doornail. Mind, I don't mean to say that I know of my own knowledge what there is particularly dead about a doornail. I might have been inclined myself to regard a coffin nail as the deadest piece of ironmongery in the trade, but the wisdom of our ancestors is in the simile, and my unhallowed hands shall not disturb it, or the country's done for. You will therefore permit me to repeat emphatically that Marley was as dead as a doornail. Scrooge knew he was dead? Of course he did. How could it be otherwise? Scrooge and he were partners for I don't know how many years. Scrooge was his sole executor, his sole administrator, his sole assign, his sole residuary legatee, his sole friend, and sole mourner. And even Scrooge was not so dreadfully cut up by the sad event, but that he was an excellent man of business on the very day of the funeral, and solemnized it with an undoubted bargain. The mention of Marley's funeral brings me back to the point I started from. There is no doubt that Marley was dead. This must be distinctly understood, or nothing wonderful can come of the story I am about to relate. If we were not perfectly convinced that Hamlet's father died before the play began, there would be nothing more remarkable in his taking a stroll at night in an easterly wind upon his own ramparts than there would be in any other middle-aged gentleman rashly turning out after dark in a breezy spot, say St. Paul's churchyard, for instance, literally to astonish his son's weak mind. Scrooge never painted out old Marley's name. There it stood, years afterwards, above the warehouse door, Scrooge and Marley. The firm was known as Scrooge and Marley. Sometimes people new to the business called Scrooge Scrooge and sometimes Marley, but he answered to both names. It was all the same to him. Oh, but he was a tight-fisted hand at the grindstone, Scrooge. A squeezing, wrenching, grasping, scraping, clutching, covetous old sinner. Hard and sharp as flint, from which no steel had ever struck out generous fire. Secret and self-contained and solitary as an oyster. The cold within him froze his old features, nipped his pointed nose, shriveled his cheek, stiffened his gait, made his eyes red, his thin lips blue, and spoke out shrewdly in his grating voice. A frosty rime was on his head, and on his eyebrows, and his wiry chin. He carried his own low temperature always about with him. He iced his office in the dog days, and didn't thaw it 1 degree at Christmas. External heat and cold had little influence on Scrooge. No warmth could warm, no wintry weather chill him, no wind that blew was bitterer than he, no falling snow was more intent upon its purpose, no pelting rain less open to entreaty. Foul weather didn't know where to have him. The heaviest rain and snow and hail and sleet could boast of the advantage over him in only one respect. They often came down handsomely, and Scrooge never did. Nobody ever stopped him in the street to say, with gladsome looks, "My dear Scrooge, how are you? When will you come to see me?" No beggars implored him to bestow a trifle. No children asked him what it was o'clock. No man or woman ever once in all his life inquired the way to such and such a place of Scrooge. Even the blind men's dogs appeared to know him, and when they saw him coming on, would tug their owners into doorways and up courts, and then would wag their tails as though they said, "No eye at all is better than an evil eye, dark master." But what did Scrooge care? It was the very thing he liked, to edge his way along the crowded paths of life, warning all human sympathy to keep its distance, was what the knowing ones called nuts to Scrooge. Once upon a time, of all the good days in the year, on Christmas Eve, old Scrooge sat busy in his counting house. It was cold, bleak, biting weather, foggy withal, and he could hear the people in the court outside go wheezing up and down, beating their hands upon their breasts, stamping their feet upon the pavement stones to warm them. The city clocks had only just gone 3, but it was quite dark already. It had not been light all day, and candles were flaring in the windows of the neighboring offices like ruddy smears upon the palpable brown air. The fog came pouring in at every chink and keyhole, and was so dense without that although the court was of the narrowest, the houses opposite were mere phantoms. To see the dingy cloud come drooping down, obscuring everything, one might have thought that nature lived hard by and was brewing on large scale. The door of Scrooge's counting house was open, that he might keep his eye upon his clerk, who in a dismal little cell beyond, a sort of tank, was copying letters. Scrooge had a very small fire, but the clerk's fire was so very much smaller that it looked like one coal. But he couldn't replenish it, for Scrooge kept the coal box in his own room, and so surely as the clerk came in with the shovel, the master predicted that it would be necessary for them to part. Wherefore the clerk put on his white comforter, and tried to warm himself at the candle, in which effort, not being a man of strong imagination, he failed. "A Merry Christmas, Uncle! God save you!" cried a cheerful voice. It was the voice of Scrooge's nephew, who came upon him so quickly that this was the first intimation he had of his approach. "Bah!" said Scrooge. "Humbug!" He had so heated himself with rapid walking in the fog and frost, this nephew of Scrooge's, that he was all in a glow. His face was ruddy and handsome, his eyes sparkled, and his breath smoked again. "Christmas a humbug, Uncle?" said Scrooge's nephew. "You don't mean that, I am sure." "I do. Merry Christmas. What right have you to be merry? What reason have you to be merry? You're poor enough." "Come, then," returned the nephew gaily. "What right have you to be dismal? What reason have you to be morose? You're rich enough." Scrooge, having no better answer ready upon the spur of the moment, said "Bah!" again, and followed it up with "Humbug." "Don't be cross, Uncle." "What else can I be, when I live in such a world of fools as this? Merry Christmas? Out upon Merry Christmas! What's Christmas time to you but a time for paying bills without money, a time for finding yourself a year older but not an hour richer, a time for balancing your books and having every item in them through a round dozen of months presented dead against you. If I could work my will, every idiot who goes about with Merry Christmas on his lips should be boiled with his own pudding and buried with a stake of holly through his heart. He should." "Uncle!" "Nephew, keep Christmas in your own way, and let me keep it in mine." "Keep it? But you don't keep it." Let me leave it alone, then. Much good may it do you. Much good has it ever done you." "There are many things from which I might have derived good, by which I have not profited, I dare say. Christmas among the rest. But I am sure I have always thought of Christmas time, when it has come around, apart from the veneration due to its sacred name and origin, if anything belonging to it can be apart from that, as a good time, a kind, forgiving, charitable, pleasant time, the only time I know of in the long calendar of the year when men and women seem by one consent to open their shut-up hearts freely and to think of people below them as if they really were fellow passengers to the grave, and not just another race of creatures bound on other journeys. And therefore, uncle, though it has never put a scrap of gold or silver in my pocket, I believe it has done me good and will do me good, and I say, God bless it. The clerk in the tank involuntarily applauded. Becoming immediately sensible of the impropriety, he poked the fire and extinguished the last frail spark forever. And that's a good time to go ahead and acknowledge that we got our first tip of the evening. Thank you very much to Cody for 20, who says, I love the readings. I'm so glad, Cody. I'm going to go ahead and, if you turn your attention down here to where slot 8 would be, it's time to say, ho, ho, howdy, y'all. Crow Hills here, expanding as I always do in Nashville, Tennessee. Jingle, 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 jingle bells. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just making it up as I go. It's fun, though. Do you see I have a Christmas hat? Yay. Okay. So, yeah, thank you for the patience with that false start initially there. But I feel like I got a good groove now. I'm going to go ahead and post the tips link again real quick before I forget. Tips are welcome and appreciated via paypal.me/JoeHills and YouTube Super Chat. So, if you're just joining us, Scrooge's nephew has just intruded upon his place of business and gave a little speech about Christmas. And Scrooge's clerk, whose name we don't know yet, clapped, and now Scrooge is mad at him. So let's go ahead and let me blow my nose real quick. Sorry. There we go. Here we go. Okay. So Scrooge is not pleased. Let me hear another sound from you, and you'll keep your Christmas by losing your situation. You're quite a powerful speaker, sir, he added, turning to his nephew. I wonder you don't go into Parliament. Don't be angry, Uncle. Come, dine with us tomorrow. Scrooge said that he would see him. Yes, indeed he did. He went the whole length of the expression and said that he would see him in that extremity first. But why? Cried Scrooge's nephew. Why? Why did you get married? Because I fell in love. Because you fell in love, growled Scrooge, as if that were the only one thing in the world more ridiculous than a Merry Christmas. Good afternoon. Nay, Uncle, but you never came to see me before that happened. Why give it as a reason for not coming now? Good afternoon. I want nothing from you. I ask nothing of you. Why cannot we be friends? Good afternoon. I am sorry with all my heart to find you so resolute. We have never had any quarrel to which I have been a party, but I have made the trial in homage to Christmas, and I'll keep my Christmas humor to the last. So, a Merry Christmas, Uncle. Good afternoon. And a Happy New Year. Good afternoon, said Scrooge. His nephew left the room without an angry word notwithstanding. He stopped at the outer door to bestow the greetings of the season on the clerk, who, cold as he was warmer than Scrooge, for he returned them cordially. There's another fellow, muttered Scrooge, who overheard him. My clerk with 15 shillings a week, a wife and family talking about a Merry Christmas. I'll retire to Bedlam. This lunatic, in letting Scrooge's nephew out, had let 2 other people in. They were portly gentlemen, pleasant to behold, and now stood with their hats off in Scrooge's office. They had books and papers in their hands, and bowed to him. Scrooge and Marley's, I believe, said one of the gentlemen, referring to his list. Have I the pleasure of addressing Mr. Scrooge or Mr. Marley? Mr. Marley has been dead these 7 years. He died 7 years ago, this very night. We have no doubt his liberality is well represented by his surviving partner, said. I totally switched that accent. I can't. Okay. Since I'm broke anyway. Thank you, Robin S., for tipping 10, who says we'll be rewatching as it's super late in the UK. Thank you so much for all the great content this year. Thank you, Robin. That puts us 10 away for the next expansion. Yeah, I don't know. Somehow I switched from Cockney to, like, Kentucky, and I don't know what happened. It was supposed to be the same guy. That was not a different guy. Hold on. How did I do it earlier? Scrooge and Marley. Yeah, here we go. We have no doubt his liberality as well. No, I can't. We have no doubt his liberality is well represented by his surviving partner, said the gentleman who just talks like this now, presenting his credentials. It certainly was, for they had been 2 kindred spirits. Let's get some more light. Yeah, 2 kindred spirits. At the ominous word liberality, Scrooge frowned and shook his head and handed the credentials back. At this festive season of the year, Mr. Scrooge, said the gentleman, taking up a pen, it is more than usually desirable that we should make some slight provision for the poor and destitute who suffer greatly at the present time. Many thousands are in want of common necessaries. Hundreds of thousands are in want of common comforts. Are there no prisons? Plenty of prisons, said the gentleman, laying the pen again. And the union workhouses, are they still in operation? They are, still. I wish I could say they were not. The treadmill and the poor law are in full vigor, then? Both are very busy, sir. Oh, I was afraid from what you said at first that something had occurred to stop them in their useful course. I'm very glad to hear it. Under the impression that they scarcely furnish Christian cheer of mind or body to the multitude, a few of us are endeavoring to raise a fund to buy the poor some meat and drink and a means of warmth. We chose this time because it is a time of all others when the want is keenly felt and abundance rejoices. What shall I put you down for? Nothing. You wish to be anonymous? I wish to be left alone. Since you asked me what I wish, gentlemen, that is my answer. I don't make merry myself at Christmas, and I can't afford to make idle people merry. I help to support the establishments I have mentioned. They cost enough, and those who are badly off must go there. Many can't go there, and many would rather die. If they would rather die, they had better do it and decrease the surplus population. Besides, excuse me, I don't know that. But you might know it. But you... Okay, I'm screwing this. It's hard for me to switch from the Ted voice to the Southern voice. I didn't practice this very much. Thank you, Andrew, for tipping 20. Who says loving the Scrooge voice. I'll probably just read. I was originally thinking like, oh, I'll read the tips at the points in the text where there's a good break in the story. But like, clearly it's just whenever I screw up and I need to mentally reset. So anyway, here we go. Thank you so much again to Andrew. It's time to expand. And yep, there we go. We are now 10 away from the next face camera expansion. Okay. This feels like having a conversation with my dad, says Mike. I'm glad, Mike. I'm glad. Okay. But you might know it, observed the gentleman. It's not my business. It's enough for a man to understand his own business and not to interfere with other people's. Mine occupies me constantly. Good afternoon, gentlemen. Seeing clearly that it would be useless to pursue their point, the gentleman withdrew. Scrooge resumed his labors with an improved opinion of himself and in a more facetious temper than was usual with him. Meanwhile, the fog and darkness thickened so that people ran about with flaring lamps, proffering their services to go before horses and carriages and conduct them on their way. The ancient tower of a church, whose gruff old bell was always peeping slyly down at Scrooge out of a Gothic window in the wall, became invisible and struck the hours and quarters in the clouds with tremulous vibrations afterwards, as if its teeth were chattering in its frozen head up there. The cold became intense. In the main street, at the corner of the court, some laborers were repairing the gas pipes, and had lighted a great fire in a brazier, round which a party of ragged men and boys were gathered, warming their hands and winking their eyes before the blaze in rapture. The water plug, being left in solitude, its overflowing sullenly congealed and turned to misanthropic ice. The brightness of the shops, where holly sprigs and berries crackled in the lamp heat of the windows, made pale faces ruddy as they passed. Poulterers' and grocers' trades became a splendid joke, a glorious pageant with which it was next to impossible to believe that such dull principles as bargain and sale had anything to do. The Lord Mayor, in the stronghold of the mighty mansion house, gave orders to his 50 cooks and butlers to keep Christmas as a Lord Mayor's household should, and even the little tailor, whom he had fined 5 shillings on the previous Monday for being drunk and bloodthirsty in the streets, stirred up tomorrow's pudding in his garret, while his lean wife and the baby sallied out to buy the beef. Foggier yet, and colder. Piercing, searching, biting cold. If the good St. Dunstan had but nipped the evil spirit's nose with a touch of such weather as that, instead of using his familiar weapons, then indeed he would have roared to lusty purpose. The owner of one scant young nose, gnawed and mumbled by the hungry cold as bones are gnawed by dogs, stooped down at Scrooge's keyhole to regale him with a Christmas carol. But at the first sound of "God rest ye, merry gentlemen, let nothing you dismay," Scrooge seized the ruler with such an energy of action that the singer fled in terror, leaving the keyhole to the fog and even more congenial frost. At length, the hour of shutting up the counting-house arrived. With an ill will, Scrooge dismounted from his stool and tacitly admitted the fact to the expectant clerk in the tank, who instantly stuffed his candle out and put on his hat. "You'll want all day tomorrow, I suppose?" "If it's quite convenient, sir." "It's not convenient, and it's not fair. If I was to stop half a crown for it, you'd think yourself ill-used, I'll be bound." The clerk smiled faintly. "And yet you don't think me ill-used when I pay a day's wages for no work." The clerk observed that it was only once a year. "A poor excuse for picking a man's pocket every 25th of December," said Scrooge, buttoning his great coat to the chin. "But I suppose you must have the whole day. Be here all the earlier next morning." The clerk promised he would, and Scrooge walked out with a growl. The office was closed in a twinkling, and the clerk, with the long ends of his white comforter dangling below his waist, for he boasted no greatcoat, went down a slide on Cornhill, at the end of a lane of boys, 20 times, in honor of it being Christmas Eve, and then ran home to Camden Town as hard as he could pelt, to play at Blind Man's Bluff. Scrooge took his melancholy dinner in his usual melancholy tavern, and having read all the newspapers, and beguiled the rest of the evening with his banker's book, went home to bed. He lived in chambers which had once belonged to his deceased partner. They were a gloomy suite of rooms, in a lowering pile of building up a yard where it had so little business to be that one could scarcely help fancying it must have run there when it was a young house, playing at hide-and-seek with the other houses, and forgotten the way out again. It was old enough now, and dreary enough, for nobody lived in it but Scrooge, the other rooms all being let out as offices. The yard was so dark that even Scrooge, who knew its every stone, was fain to grope with his hands. The fog and frost so hung about the black old gateway of the house that it seemed as if the genius of the weather sat in mournful meditation at the threshold. Now, it is a fact that there was nothing at all particular about the knocker on the door, except that it was very large. It is also a fact that Scrooge had seen it night and morning during his whole residence in that place. Also, that Scrooge had as little of what is called fancy about him as any man in the city of London, even including, which is a bold word, the corporation, alderman, and livery. Let it also be borne in mind that Scrooge had not bestowed one thought on Marley since his last mention of his 7 years dead partner that afternoon. And then, let any man explain to me, if he can, how it happened that Scrooge, having his key in the lock of the door, saw in the knocker, without it undergoing any intermediate process of change, not a knocker, but Marley's face. Marley's face. It was not an impenetrable shadow as the other objects in the yard were, but had a dismal light about it, like a bad lobster in a dark cellar. It was not angry or ferocious, but looked at Scrooge as Marley used to look, with ghostly spectacles turned up on its ghostly forehead. The hair was curiously stirred, as if by breath or hot air, and though the eyes were wide open, they were perfectly motionless. That, and its livid color, made it horrible. But its horror seemed to be in spite of the face and beyond its control, rather than a part of its own expression. As Scrooge looked fixedly at this phenomenon, it was a knocker again. To say that he was not startled, or that his blood was not conscious of a terrible sensation to which it had been a stranger from infancy, would be untrue. But he put his hand upon the key he had relinquished, turned it sturdily, walked in, and lighted his candle. He did pause, with a moment's irresolution, before he shut the door, and he did look cautiously behind it first, as if he half expected to be terrified with the sight of Marley's pigtail sticking out into the hall. But there was nothing on the back of the door, except the screws and nuts that held the knocker on. So he said, "Pooh-pooh," and closed it with a bang. The sound resounded through the house like thunder. Every room above and every cask in the wine merchant's cellars below appeared to have a separate peal of echoes of its own. Scrooge was not a man to be frightened by echoes. He fastened the door and walked across the hall and up the stairs, slowly too, trimming his candle as he went. You may talk vaguely about driving a coach and six up a good old flight of stairs or through a bad young Act of Parliament, but I mean to say you might have got a hearse up that staircase and taken it broadwise with the splinter bar toward the wall and the door toward the balustrades and done it easy, There was plenty of width for that, and room to spare. Which is perhaps the reason why Scrooge thought he saw a locomotive hearse going on before him in the gloom. Half a dozen gas lamps out of the street wouldn't have lighted the entry too well. So, you must suppose that it was pretty dark with Scrooge's dip. Up Scrooge went, not caring a button for that. Darkness is cheap, and Scrooge liked it. But before he shut his heavy door, he walked through his rooms to see that all was right. He had just enough recollection of the face to desire to do that. Sitting room, bedroom, lumber room, all as they should be. Nobody under the table, nobody under the sofa. Small fire in the grate, spoon and basin ready, and the little saucepan of gruel. Scrooge had a cold in his head. Upon the hob. Nobody under the bed, nobody in the closet, nobody in his dressing gown, which was hanging up in a suspicious attitude against the wall. Lumber room as usual. Old fire guard, old shoes, 2 fish baskets, washing stand on 3 legs, and a poker. Quite satisfied, he closed his door and locked himself in. Double locked himself in, which was not his custom. Thus secured against surprise, he took off his cravat, put on his dressing gown and slippers and his nightcap, and sat down before the fire to take his gruel. It was a very low fire indeed. Nothing on such a bitter night. He was obliged to sit close to it and brood over it before he could extract the least sensation of warmth from such a handful of fuel. The fireplace was an old one, built by some Dutch merchant long ago, and paved all round with quaint Dutch tiles designed to illustrate the scriptures. There were Cains and Abels, Pharaoh's daughters, queens of Sheba, angelic messengers descending through the air on clouds like feather beds, Abraham, Belshazzars, apostles putting off to sea in butter boats, hundreds of figures to attract his thoughts. And yet, the face of Marley, 7 years dead, came like the ancient prophet's rod and swallowed up the whole. If each smooth tile had been a blank at first, with power to shape some picture on its surface from the disjointed fragments of his thoughts, there would have been a copy of old Marley's head on every one. "Humbug!" said Scrooge, and walked across the room. After several turns, he sat down again. As he threw his head back in his chair, his glance happened to rest upon a bell, a disused bell that hung in the room, and communicated for some purpose now forgotten with a chamber in the highest story of the building. It was with great astonishment and with a strange, inexplicable dread that as he looked, he saw this bell begin to swing. It swung so softly in its outset that it scarcely made a sound, but soon it rang out loudly, and so did every bell in the house. This might have lasted half a minute, or a minute, but it seemed like an hour. The bells ceased as they had begun, together. They were succeeded by a clanking noise, deep down below, as if some person were dragging a heavy chain over the casks in the wine merchant's cellar. Scrooge then remembered to have heard that ghosts in haunted houses were described as dragging chains. The cellar door flew open with a booming sound, and he heard the noise much louder on the floors below, then coming up the stairs, then coming straight toward his door. "It's humbug still! I won't believe it!" His color changed, though, when without a pause it came on through the heavy door and passed into the room before his eyes. Upon coming in, the dying flame leaped up as though it cried, "I know him, Marley's ghost," and fell again. The same face, the very same. Marley, in his pigtail, usual waistcoat, tights, and boots, the tassels on the latter bristling like his pigtail, and his coat skirts, and the hair upon his head. The chain he drew was clasped about his middle. It was long and wound round him like a tail, and it was made, for Scrooge observed it closely, of cash boxes, keys, padlocks, ledgers, deeds, and heavy purses wrought in steel. His body was transparent, so that Scrooge, observing him and looking through his waistcoat, could see 2 buttons on his coat behind. Scrooge had often heard it said that Marley had no bowels, but he never believed it until now. Nor did he believe it even now. Though he looked the phantom through and through, and saw it standing before him, though he felt the chilling influence of its death-cold eyes, and marked the very texture of the folded kerchief bound about its head and chin, which wrapper he had not observed before, he was still incredulous, and fought against his senses. "How now? What do you want with me?" "Much," Marley's voice. No doubt about it. "Who are you?" "Ask me who I was." "Who were you, then?" said Scrooge, raising his voice. "You're particular, for a shade." He was going to say, "to a shade," but substituted this, as more appropriate. "In life, I was your partner, Jacob Marley." "Whoa. Can you sit down?" asked Scrooge, looking doubtfully at him. "I can." "Do it, then." Scrooge asked the question because he didn't know whether a ghost so transparent might find himself in a condition to take a chair, and felt that in the event of it being impossible, it might involve the necessity of an embarrassing explanation. But the ghost sat down on the opposite side of the fireplace, as if he were quite used to it. "You don't believe in me," observed the ghost. "I don't." "What evidence would you have of my reality beyond that of your senses?" "I don't know." "Why do you doubt your senses?" "Because a little thing affects them. A slight disorder of the stomach makes them cheats. You may be an undigested bit of beef, a blot of mustard, a crumb of cheese, a fragment of an underdone potato. There is more of gravy than of grave about you, whatever you are." Scrooge was not so much in the habit of cracking jokes, nor did he feel, in his heart, by any means waggish then. The truth is that he tried to be smart, as a means of distracting his own attention and keeping down his terror, for the spectre's voice disturbed the very marrow of his bones. To sit staring at those fixed, glazed eyes in silence for a moment would play, Scrooge felt, the very deuce with him. There was something awful, very awful too, in the spectre's being provided with an infernal atmosphere of its own. Scrooge could not feel it himself, but this was clearly the case, for though the ghost sat perfectly motionless, its hair and skirts and tassels were still agitated, as though by the hot vapor from an oven. "You see this toothpick?" said Scrooge, returning quickly to the charge for the reason just assigned, and wishing, though it were only for a second, to divert the vision's stony gaze from himself. "I do," replied the ghost. "You're not looking at it." "But I see it, notwithstanding." "Well, I have but to swallow this, and be, for the rest of my days, persecuted by a legion of goblins, all of my own creation. Humbug, I tell you. Humbug. At this, the spirit raised a frightful cry, and shook its chain with such a dismal and appalling noise that Scrooge held on tight to his chair to save himself from falling in a swoon. But how much greater was his horror when the phantom, taking off the bandage round its head, as if it were too warm to wear indoors, its lower jaw dropped upon his breast. Scrooge fell upon his knees and clasped his hands before his face. Mercy! Dreadful apparition! Why do you trouble me? Man of the worldly mind, do you believe in me or not? I do! I must! But why do spirits walk the earth, and why do they come to me? It is required of every man, the ghost returned, that the spirit within him should walk abroad among his fellow men, and travel far and wide, and if that spirit goes not forth in life, it is condemned to do so after death. It is doomed to wander through the world. Oh, woe is me, and witness what it cannot share, but might have shared on earth, and turned to happiness. Again, the spectre raised a cry, and shook its chains, and wrung its shadowy hands. You are fettered, said Scrooge, trembling. Tell me why. I wear the chain I forged in life. I made it, link by link and yard by yard. I girded it on of my own free will, and of my own free will I wore it. Is its pattern strange to you? Scrooge trembled more and more. Or would you know the weight and length of the strong coil you bear yourself? It was full as heavy and as long as this 7 Christmas Eves ago. You have labored on it since. It is a ponderous chain. Scrooge glanced about him on the floor, in the expectation of finding himself surrounded by some 50 or 60 fathoms of iron cable. But he could see nothing. Jacob! Old Jacob Marley! Tell me more. Speak comfort to me, Jacob. I have none to give. It comes from other regions. Ebenezer Scrooge, and is conveyed by other ministers to other kinds of men. Nor can I tell you what I would. Very little more is permitted to me. I cannot rest, I cannot stay, I cannot linger anywhere. My spirit never walked beyond our counting house. Mark me, in life, my spirit never roved beyond the narrow limits of our money-changing hole, and weary journeys lie before me. It was a habit with Scrooge, whenever he became thoughtful, to put his hands in his breeches pockets. Pondering on what the ghost had said, he did so now, but without lifting his eyes or getting off his knees. You must have been very slow about it, Jacob, Scrooge observed in a businesslike manner, though with humility and deference. Slow, the ghost repeated. 7 years dead, and traveling all the time? The whole time, no rest, no peace, incessant torture of remorse! You travel fast? On the wings of the wind. You might have got over a great quantity of ground in 7 years. The ghost, on hearing this, set up another cry. Whoa! and clanked its chain so hideously in the dead silence of the night that the ward would have been justified in indicting it for a nuisance. "Oh, captive, bound, and double-ironed," cried the phantom. "Not to know that ages of incessant labor by immortal creatures for this earth must pass into eternity, before the good of which it is susceptible is all developed. Not to know that any Christian spirit working kindly in its little sphere, whatever it may be, will find its mortal life too short for vast means of usefulness. Not to know that no space of regret can make amends for another one's life opportunities misused. Yet such was I. Oh, such was I." "But you were always a good man of business, Jacob," faltered Scrooge, who now began to apply this to himself. "Business? Mankind was my business. The common welfare was my business. Charity, mercy, forbearance, and benevolence were all my business. The dealings of my trade were but a drop of water in the comprehensive ocean of my business." It held up its chain at arm's length, as if that were the cause of all its unavailing grief, and flung it heavily upon the ground again. "At this time of the rolling year, I suffer most. Why did I walk through crowds of fellow beings with my eyes turned down, and never raise them to that blessed star which led the wise men to a poor abode? Were there no poor homes to which its light would have conducted me?" Scrooge was very much dismayed to hear the specter going on at this rate, and began to quake exceedingly. "Hear me, my time is nearly gone." "I will, but don't be hard upon me. Don't be flowery, Jacob, pray." "How is it that I appear before you in a shape that you can see? I may not tell. I have sat invisible beside you many and many a day." It was not an agreeable idea. Scrooge shivered and wiped the perspiration from his brow. "That is no light part of my penance. I am here tonight to warn you that you have yet a chance and hope of escaping my fate. A chance and hope of my procuring, Ebenezer." "Whoa. You were always a good friend to me. Thank you." "You will be haunted," resumed the ghost, "by 3 spirits." Scrooge's countenance fell almost as low as the ghost's had done. Is that the chance and hope you mentioned, Jacob?" he demanded in a faltering voice. "It is. I think I'd rather not. Without their visits, you cannot hope to shun the path I tread. Expect the first tomorrow, when the bell trolls 1. "Couldn't I take it all at once and have it over, Jacob?" hinted Scrooge. "Expect the second on the next night at the same hour. The third upon the next night when the last stroke of 12 has ceased to vibrate. Look to see me no more, and look that for your own sake you remember what has passed between us." When it had said these words, the spectre took its wrapper from the table, bound it round its head as before. Scrooge knew this by the smart sound its teeth made when the jaws were brought together again by the bandage. He ventured to raise his eyes again, and found the supernatural visitor confronting him in an erect attitude, with its chin wound over, with its chain wound over and about its arm. The apparition walked backward from him, and at every step it took, the window raised a little, so that when the spectre reached it, it was wide open. It beckoned Scrooge to approach. which she did. When they were within 2 paces of each other, Marley's ghost held up its hand, warning Scrooge to come no nearer. Scrooge stopped. Not so much in obedience as in surprise and fear, for on the raising of the hand, he became sensible of confused noises in the air, incoherent sounds of lamentation and regret, wailings inexpressibly sorrowful and self-accusatory. Spectre, after listening for a moment, joined in the mournful dirge, and floated out upon the bleak, dark night. Scrooge followed to the window, desperate in his curiosity. He looked out. The air was filled with phantoms, wandering hither and thither in restless haste, moaning as they went. Every one of them wore chains like Marley's ghost. Some few, they might be guilty governments, were linked together. None were free. Many had been personally known to Scrooge in their lives. He had been quite familiar with one old ghost in a white waistcoat with a monstrous iron safe attached to its ankle, who cried piteously at being unable to assist a wretched woman with an infant who it saw below upon a doorstep. The misery with them all was, clearly, that they sought to interfere for good in human matters, and had lost that power forever. Whether these creatures faded into mist or mist enshrouded them, he could not tell, but they and their spirit voices faded together, and the night became as it had been when he walked home. Scrooge closed the window and examined the door by which the ghost had entered. It was double-locked, as he had locked it with his own hands, and the bolts were undisturbed. He tried to say humbug, but stopped at the first syllable, and being, from the emotion he had undergone, or the fatigues of the day, or his glimpse of the invisible world, or the dull conversation of the ghost, or the lateness of the hour, much in need of repose, went straight to bed, without undressing, and fell asleep upon the instant. And that concludes Stave One of A Christmas Carol. We're going to read Stave Two after a quick hydration break. Are we still setting up the stream? I guess we can take that down. Oh, hey, looks like we just got a tip, too. Let's go ahead. If you guys have tips, go ahead and send those in now so I can read those before we start the Stave 2. So, yeah, we're going to... whoops. We want... There it is. Okay, wait. We'll put this up here. Boom. Okay. So, we just got a tip from Rummy. Thank you very much, Rummy, for the 50. Woo! That gets us 3 face camera expansions all in a row. Here we go. Numero uno. Expand Joe. Do 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 do. Numero dos. A bigger Joe. Do 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 do. Now for this next one. Y'all have seen that money go straight to my head, but like Jacob Marley, who we were visited by earlier, these chains I forged in life are about to begin pulling me down to the deep below. Enter the Jost. Do 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 do. Alrighty, so we are going to say thank you very much to Rumi, who writes, Merry Christmas, Joe. My family has been watching your HermitCraft videos for a little over a year. We enjoy your sincere point of view. So much so my husband and I have started watching most of your streams after the kids go to bed. Thank you for your art, Rumi and family. Well, thank you so much. Appreciate you enjoying the show. It's so nice. Like, I remember I saw on Twitter this thing where it's like, this child was just like, you guys said you do chores after I go to sleep, but you watch TV and eat ice cream. You're having a party without me. So don't let the kids find out. But, thank you very much. So yeah, we're going to do Stave 2 after the hydration break with Badger Spanner joining us in studio as the ghost of Christmas past. And so it's going to take me a minute to get set up for that. So we're going to go ahead and let's see who we need to thank for that hydration break here. Boom, 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 boom. Sorry, I did not set this up in advance. Let's see, we got a message here. Okay. So, sheets.google.com, pulling up our thank you list. Yeah, this is not like a super high-end production. Okay, so, we have our, so Gritmonger had requested lines, and our newest hydration break sponsor, Shorf, requested deep into Under Mountain. So that's going to get us about 6 minutes of break while I go ahead and we get Badger's chair set up and all that going. So we will be right back. Oh, I should probably put up the hydration break sign once I find it. Oh my gosh, I have like 8 million layers in this OBS. I think I'm going to need to clean that up this week because I've been putting it off too long. Bonus stream? No. Music? No. Well, we can leave the music one up. Where's the hydration break? Come on, it should be here. There it is, hydration break, BRB. And then we'll move this one slightly lower. Boom. Okay. Alrighty, be right back, folks.
Power line to convey a certain brilliance, a telephone line to carry a voice, a metro line to bring us all downtown. Lines of connection, communication, not the borders of boundaries that slice and dice a nation. Divided by the chalk lines of disreputable history, past failures are laid out as we shrug with absent mystery. Those bodies left behind us while we amble on ahead, fearful of the wrong things from newspapers unread. Before I tell you what to do, or you try to tell me, let's all see what's been done and where we could have been. By knowing what's before us, the path might clear ahead, and focus on new obstacles uncharted by the dead. Power line from a gurgling turbine, a telephone line from a quiet room, a metro line from across the city. Maybe we'll all raise our glasses soon. They say across the fence line the grass is always butcherous, but we're not corralling cattle, fearing wranglers about the murders. When we look out past dividers, we're unsurprised to see more folks erecting fences, becoming detainees. Before I worry about you or you worry about me, let's all dwell on ourselves, we're the private enemy. Becoming who we're meant to, virtuous and creative, we won't dread the different, the strange or unrelated. A power line to convey certain brilliance, a telephone line to carry a voice, a metro line to bring us home, to bring us home.
One evening as as the sun went down and our cooking coals were glowing, down the path came a party hiking, and they said, folks, we're all going. We're yearning for a portal far away in a tavern full of shouting. So join us, friends, and let's descend deep into Under Mountain, deep into Under Mountain. There run dungeons hot and cold, where the monsters surge and pushes, and the youngest runes are old, where the mimics all lie waiting, and the goblin werebats roost. All the wisps and wasps and the mezzo lost, the hidden pit where we'll all plummet deep into Under Mountain. Deep into Under Mountain, all our blades will sing like choirs, as our arrows strike like drum beats, and our green flame pops and pyres. Our barbarian will stomp a brood as the rogues dance shadow play. Oh, we're sworn to go at a great tempo. We'll chant our spells as we now delve deep into Under Mountain. Deep into Under Mountain, you'll always find new gear, and your old mundane accoutrement can be handed down, don't fear. The magic items you'll attune and the artifacts you'll find. There's armor with gems and weird potions and a propeller hat that lets you ascend deep into Under Mountain. Deep into Under Mountain, the mad wizard stood gates so folks can open portals. He left clues to activate. He has a thing for puzzles and he likes to throw his voice. We're going to delve to where he dwells, to the lowest tower, to seek his power deep into Under Mountain. I'll see you there, the lowest lair, deep into Under Mountain.
And we are back. Hydration break be gone. Where's that camera? Boom. Howdy, y'all. Joe Hills here, recording as I always do in Nashville, Tennessee, joined by Badger's Banner. Yay! Okay, so we're going to try and get some quick levels. Badger, do you want to just say something real quick?
Hello, I am the ghost of Christmas past.
Badger's Banner will indeed be playing the Ghost of Christmas Past, and I'm going to be reading everything else. Woo! It was not a dehydration break. It's a avoiding dehydration break. But okay, so before we do anything else, I want to thank Aaron for tipping 10, who says, Merry Christmas, Joe. Whoops, there we go. That puts us 10 away from our next face camera expansion. We are still doing those expansions during the what do you call it? The story. But we're not going to do, I might not acknowledge the tips right away because like I want to wait until there's like a logical break. Or probably, more likely, if I screw up a joke and start laughing, then I'll look at the tips and then we'll do the camera. As a salvage mechanism. Woo! Okay. So, welcome one and all. If you're just joining us, we are about to do Stave Two, the first of the three spirits, from Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol. I'm going to go ahead and post a link to this if you want to read along. This is in the public domain. There on Project Gutenberg, so there you go. Okay, so I think we are all set. That was all the tips we got. I'm going to jump in. It's going to be a little while until Badger has a line. So thank you, Badger, for waiting patiently. Ooh. Stave Two, the first of three spirits. Ooh. When Scrooge awoke, it was so dark that... Wait, what was...
Uh-oh. Hey, Phantom.
Was that... Uh-oh.
Yep.
Whoa, why is the game screenshot mode or screensaver mode? What is going? Okay, something is killing my frame rate, and I don't know what it is. That is.
Maybe it's me.
Are you killing my frame rate? I know
Yeah.
folding isn't open. What is going on?
I'm prompting you.
Are you? Maybe could you please not? Okay.
Sorry.
What is this? Oh my gosh, is it the blocks flying? Let's maybe turn our view distance down. Okay. Yeah, that seemed to have helped.
Yeah.
And also, let's get rid of the phantoms maybe by going to sleep. Fun fact, y'all. I was hoping that when Scrooge looked out the window and saw the phantoms, my original plan... Whoa.
What? What the?
That sure is something. Okay. My original plan, I was hoping... You can tip via YouTube Super Chat or via PayPal. I was hoping it would be nighttime when Scrooge looked out and saw the phantoms, so that I could step out and see the phantoms. But, okay. So we can still see the castle there in the distance. We still got the Drowning Courtier. But okay, so since we got thrown off by the phantoms there, thank you very much to Yurgi for tipping 10, who says, story time, yay, always enjoy this. Thank you, Yurgi. That is going to put us evenly at our next face camera expansion, so here we go. Expand the ghost of Christmas past, and also Joe Hills. Do-do-do-do. Do-do-do-do. Okay, that's probably bigger than, yeah, that's about here. Okay, and so we're going to lower the Joe opacity now to 80%. And cool. Okay, so let's see. What were we gonna do next? Yeah, we were gonna read a story. We were just about to start Stave 2 when I got attacked by phantoms. Sorry about that, y'all. Okay.
So inconsiderate.
And let's get rid of that music overlay too. Yeah, so starting Stave 2 for real now. Okay. Stave 2. The first... Oh, wait, there's an overlay directly in front of your eyes. Yeah, boom. Okay, better. Yeah, there's no room for anything. I'm just going to power through this. Stave 2, the first of 3 spirits. When Scrooge awoke, it was so dark that looking out of his bed, he could scarcely distinguish the transparent window from the opaque walls of his chamber. He was endeavoring to pierce the darkness with his ferret eyes when the chimes of a neighboring church struck the 4 quarters.
Ding.
So he listened for the hour. To his great astonishment, the heavy bell went on from 6 to 7, and from 7 to 8, and regularly up to 12, then stopped. 12. It was past 2 when he went to bed. The clock was wrong. An icicle must have gotten into the works. 12. You can put 2 in. 12. He touched the spring of his repeater to correct this most preposterous clock. Its rapid little pulse beat 12 and stopped. Why? It isn't possible, said Scrooge. Wait, sorry. Why, it isn't possible that I can have slept through a whole day and far into another night. It isn't possible that anything has happened to the sun, and that this is 12 at noon. The idea being an alarming one, he scrambled out of bed and groped his way to the window. He was obliged to rub the frost off with the sleeve of his dressing gown before he could see anything, and could see very little then. All he could make out was that it was still very foggy and extremely cold, and that there was no noise of people running to and fro, and making a great stir, as there unquestionably would have been if the night had beaten off bright day and taken possession of the world. This was a great relief, because 3 days after sight of this first exchange, pay to Mr. Ebenezer Scrooge or his order, and so forth, would have become a mere United States security if there were no days to count by. Scrooge went to bed again, and thought it over and over and over, and could make nothing of it. The more he thought, the more perplexed he was. The more he endeavored not to think, the more he thought. Marley's ghost bothered him exceedingly. Every time he resolved within himself, after mature inquiry, that it was all a dream, his mind flew back again like a strong spring released to its first position, and presented the same problem to be worked through. Was it a dream or not? Scrooge lay in this state until the chime had gone 3 quarters more, when he remembered on a sudden that the ghost had warned him of a visitation when the bell tolled one. He resolved to lie awake until the hour was past, and considering that he could no more go to sleep than go to heaven, this was perhaps the wisest resolution in his power. The quarter was so long that he was more than once convinced he must have sunk into a doze unconsciously and missed the clock. At length it broke upon his listening ear. Ding dong. A quarter past. Ding dong. Half past. Ding dong. A quarter to it. Ding dong. The hour itself. And nothing else. He spoke before the bell sounded, which it now did with a deep, dull, hollow, melancholy one. Light flashed up in the room upon the instant, and the curtains of his bed were drawn. The curtains of his bed were drawn aside, I tell you, by a hand. Not the curtains at his feet, nor the curtains at his back, but those to which his face was addressed. The curtains of his bed were drawn aside, and Scrooge, starting up into a half-recumbent attitude, found himself face to face with the unearthly visitor who drew them, as close to it as I now am to you. And I am standing in the spirit at your elbow. It was a strange figure, like a child, yet not so like a child as like an old man, viewed through some supernatural medium, which gave him the appearance of having receded from view and being diminished to a child's proportions. Its hair, which hung about its neck and down its back, was white, as if with age. And yet the face had not a wrinkle on it, and the tenderest bloom was on the skin. The arms were very long and muscular, the hands the same, as if its hold were of uncommon strength. Its legs and feet, most delicately formed, were like those upper members, bare. It wore a tunic of the purest white, and round its waist was bound a lustrous belt, the sheen of which was beautiful. It held a branch of fresh green holly in its hand, and, in singular contradiction of that wintry emblem, had its dress trimmed with summer flowers. But the strangest thing about it was that from the crown of its head there sprung a bright, clear jet of light, by which all this was visible. And and which was doubtless the occasion of its using, in its duller moments, the great extinguisher for a cap, which it now held under its arm. Even this, though, when Scrooge looked at it with increasing steadiness, was not its strangest quality, for as its belt sparkled and glittered now in one part and now in another, and what was light one instant at another time was dark, so the figure itself fluctuated in its distinctness, being now a thing with one arm, now with one leg, now with 20 legs, now a pair of legs without a head, and now a head without a body, of which dissolving parts no outline would be visible in the dense gloom wherein they melted away. And in the very wonder of this, it would be itself again, distinct and clear as ever. "Are you the spirit, sir, whose coming was foretold to me?"
"I am."
The voice was soft and gentle, singularly low, as if, instead of being so close beside him, it were at a distance. "Who and what are you?"
"I am the ghost of Christmas past."
"Long past?"
"No, your past."
Perhaps Scrooge could not have told anybody why, if anybody could have asked him, but he had a special desire to see the spirit in his cap, and begged him to be covered.
"What? Would you so soon put out with worldly hands the light I give? Is it not enough that you are one of those whose passions made this cap, and forced me through whole trains of years to wear it low upon my brow?"
Scrooge reverently disclaimed all intention to offend or any knowledge of having willfully bonneted the spirit at any point or period of his life. Then he made bold to inquire what business brought him here.
Your welfare.
Scrooge expressed himself much obliged, but could not help thinking that a night of unbroken rest would have been more conducive to that end. The spirit must have heard him thinking, for it said immediately,
Your reclamation, then. Take heed.
It put out its strong hand as it spoke, and clasped him gently by the arm.
Rise, and walk with me.
It would have been in vain for Scrooge to plead that the weather or the hour were not adapted to pedestrian purposes. The bed was warm, and the thermometer a long way below freezing. That he was clad but lightly in his slippers, dressing gown, and nightcap, and he had a cold upon him at that time. The grasp, though gentle as a woman's hand, was not to be resisted. He rose, but finding that the spirit made toward the window, clasped his robe in supplication. I am a mortal, and liable to fall.
Bear but a touch of my hand. There.
Said the spirit, laying it upon his heart.
And you shall be upheld in more than this.
As the words were spoken, they passed through the wall, and stood upon an open country road, with fields on either hand. The city had entirely vanished. Not a vestige of it was to be seen. The darkness and mist had vanished with it, for it was a clear, cold, wintry day, with snow upon the ground. Good heavens! Said Scrooge, clasping his hands together as he looked about him. I was bred in this place. I was a boy here. The spirit gazed upon him mildly. Its gentle touch, though it had been light and instantaneous, appeared still present to the old man's sense of feeling. He was conscious of 1,000 odors floating in the air, each one connected with 1,000 thoughts and hopes and joys and cares long, long forgotten.
Your lip is trembling. And what is that upon your cheek?
Scrooge muttered with an unusual catching in his voice, It's a pimple, and begged the ghost to lead him where he would.
You recollect the way?
Remember it? I could walk it blindfold.
Strange to have forgotten it for so many years. Let us go on.
They walked along the road, Scrooge recognizing every gate and post and tree, until a little market town appeared in the distance, with its bridge, its church, and winding river. Some shagging ponies now were seen trotting toward them with boys upon their backs, who called to other boys in country gigs and carts driven by farmers. All these boys were in great spirits, and shouted to each other until the broad fields were so full of merry music that the crisp air laughed to hear it.
These are but shadows of the things that have been. They have no consciousness of us.
The jocund travelers came on, and as they came, Scrooge knew and named them every one. Why was he rejoiced beyond all bounds to see them? Why did his cold eye glisten, and his heart leap up as they went past? Why was he filled with gladness when he heard them give each other Merry Christmas as they parted at crossroads and byways for their several homes? What was Merry Christmas to Scrooge? Out upon Merry Christmas, what good had it ever done to him?
The school is not quite deserted. A solitary child, neglected by his friends, is left there still.
Scrooge said he knew it, and he sobbed. They left the high road by a well-remembered lane and soon approached a mansion of dull red brick, with a little weathercock-surmounted cupola on the roof and a bell hanging on it. It was a large house, but one of broken fortunes, for the spacious offices were little used. Their walls were damp and mossy, their windows broken, and their gates decayed. Fowls clucked and strutted in the stables, and the coach houses and sheds were overrun with grass. Nor was it more retentive of its ancient state when, for entering the dreary hall and glancing through the open doors of many rooms, they found them poorly furnished, cold, and vast. There was an earthy savor in the air, a chilly bareness in the place, which associated itself somehow with too much getting up by candlelight, and not much to eat. They went, the ghost and Scrooge, across the hall, to a door at the back of the house. It opened before them, and disclosed a long, bare, melancholy room, made barer still by lines of plain deal forms and desks. At one of these was a lonely boy, reading near a feeble fire, and Scrooge sat down upon a form and wept to see his poor forgotten self as he used to be. Not a latent echo in the house, not a squeak and shuffle from the mice behind the paneling, not a drip from the half-thawed waterspout in the dull yard beyond, not a sigh among the leafless boughs of one despondent poplar, not the idle swinging of an empty storehouse door, no, not a clicking in the fire, but fell upon the heart of Scrooge with a softening influence, and gave a freer passage to his tears. The spirit touched him on the arm, and pointed to his younger self, intent upon his reading. Suddenly, a man in foreign garments, wonderfully real and distinct to look at, stood outside the window, with an axe stuck in his belt, and leading by the bridle an ass laden with wood. "Why, it's Ali Baba! It's dear old honest Ali Baba! Yes, yes, I know. One Christmas time, when yonder solitary child was left here all alone, he did come for the first time just like that. Poor boy. And Valentine. And his wild brother Orson, there they go. And that's what's-his-name, who was put down in the drawers asleep at the gate of Damascus. Don't you see him? And the Sultan's groom turned upside down by the genie. There he is upon his head. Serve him right. I'm glad of it. What business had he to be married to the princess?" To hear Scrooge expanding all the earnestness of his nature on such subjects in a most extraordinary voice, between laughing and crying, to see his heightened and excited face, would have been a surprise to his business friends in the city indeed. "There's the parrot! Green body and yellow tail, with a thing like lettuce growing out the top of its head. There he is. Poor Robinson Crusoe, he called him, when he came home again after sailing around the island. Poor Robinson Crusoe. Where have you been, Robinson Crusoe?" The man thought he was dreaming. But he wasn't. It was the parrot, you know. There goes Friday, running for his life to the little creek. "Hello! Hoop! Hello!" Then, with a rapidity of transition very foreign to his usual character, he said in pity for his former self, "Poor boy," and cried again. "I wish," Scrooge muttered, putting his hand in his pocket and looking about him, drying his eyes with his cuff. "But it's too late now."
What is the matter?
Nothing. There's a boy singing a Christmas carol at my door last night. I should have liked to given him something, that's all." The ghost smiled thoughtfully and waved its hand, saying as it did so,
"Let us see another Christmas."
Scrooge's former self grew larger at the words, and the room became a little darker and more dirty. The panels shrunk, the windows cracked, fragments of plaster fell out of the ceiling, and the naked laths were shown instead. But how all this was brought about, Scrooge knew no more than you do. He only knew that it was quite correct, that everything had happened so, that here he was, alone again, when all the other boys had gone home for jolly holiday. He was not reading now, but walking up and down despairingly. Scrooge looked at the ghost, and, with a mournful shaking of his head, glanced anxiously toward the door. It opened, and a little girl, much younger than the boy, came darting in, and putting her arms around his neck, and often kissing him, addressed him as her dear, dear brother. "I have come to take you home, dear brother," said the child, clapping her tiny hands and bending down to laugh. "To bring you home! Home!" "Home, little fan?" "Yes," said the joy, brimful of glee. "Home, for good and all. Home forever and ever. Father is so much kinder than he used to be, that home's like heaven. He spoke so gently to me one dear night when I was going to bed, that I was not afraid to ask him once more if you might come home, and he said, 'Yes, you should,' and sent me in a coach to bring you, and you're to be a man," said the child, opening her eyes, "and you are never to come back here, but first we're to be together all Christmas long, and to have the merriest time in the world." "You are quite a woman, little fan," exclaimed the boy. She clapped her hands and laughed, and tried to touch his head, but being too little, laughed again, and stood on tiptoes to embrace him. Then she began to drag him, in her childish eagerness, toward the door, and he, nothing loath to go, accompanied her. A terrible voice in the hall cried, "Bring down Mr. Scrooge's box there." And in the hall appeared the schoolmaster himself, who glared on Master Scrooge with a ferocious condescension, and threw him into a dreadful state of mind by shaking hands with him. He then conveyed him and his sister into the veriest old well of a shivering best parlor that ever was seen, where the maps upon the wall and the celestial and terrestrial globes in the windows were waxy with cold. Here he produced a decanter of curiously light wine, and a block of curiously heavy cake, and administered installments of those dainties to the young people, at the same time sending out a meager servant to offer a glass of something to the post-boy, who answered that he thanked the gentleman, but if it was the same tap that he had tasted before, he had rather not. Master Scrooge's trunk being by this time tied on the top of the chaise, the children bade the schoolmaster good-bye right willingly, and getting into it, drove gaily down the garden sweep, the quick wheels dashing the hoar-frost and snow from off the dark leaves of the evergreens like spray.
Always a delicate creature, whom a breath might have withered, but she had a large heart.
"So she had. You're right, I will not gainsay it, Spirit. God forbid."
She died a woman, and had, as I think, children?
"One child."
True, your nephew.
Scrooge seemed uneasy in his mind, and answered briefly, "Yes." Although they had but that moment left the school behind them, they were now in the busy thoroughfares of a city, where shadowy passengers passed and repassed, where shadowy carts and coaches battled for the way, and all the strife and tumult of a real city were. It was made plain enough by the dressing of the shops that here, too, it was Christmas time again. But it was evening, and the shops were lighted up. The ghost stopped at a certain warehouse door, and asked Scrooge if he knew it. "Know it? Was I apprenticed here?" They went in, at sight of an old gentleman in a Welsh wig, sitting behind such a high desk that if he had been 2 inches taller, he might have knocked his head against the ceiling. Scrooge cried in great excitement, "Why, it's old Fezziwig! Bless his heart! It's Fezziwig alive again!" Old Fezziwig laid down his pen and looked up at the clock, which pointed to the hour of 7. He rubbed his hands, adjusted his capricious waistcoat, laughed all over himself, from his shoes to his organ of benevolence, and called out in a comfortable, oily, rich, fat, jovial voice, "Yo-ho there, Ebenezer! Dick!" Scrooge's former self, now a young man, came briskly in, accompanied by his fellow prentice. "Dick Williams, to be sure. Oh, bless me. Yes, there he is. He was very much attached to me, was Dick. Poor Dick, dear, dear. Yo-ho, my boys. No more work tonight. Christmas Eve, Dick. Christmas, Ebenezer. Let's have the shutters up, cried old Fezziwig with a sharp clap of his hands. Before a man can say Jack Robinson. You wouldn't believe how those two fellows went at it. They charged into the street with the shutters. 1, 2, 3. Had 'em up in their places. 4, 5, 6. Barred 'em, pinned 'em. 7, 8, 9. Came back before you could have got to 12. Panted like racehorses. Hilly-ho! Cried old Fezziwig, skipping down from the high desk with wonderful agility. Clear away, my lads, and let's have lots of room here. Hilly-ho, Dick, Chub, Ebenezer. Clear away. There was nothing they wouldn't have cleared away or couldn't have cleared away. With old Fezziwig looking on, it was done in a minute. Every movable was packed off, as if it were dismissed from public life forevermore. The floor was swept and watered, the lamps were trimmed, fuel was heaped upon the fire, and the warehouse was as snug and as warm and as dry and bright as a ballroom, as you would desire to see upon a winter's night. In came a fiddler with a music book, and went up to the lofty desk, and made an orchestra of it, and tuned like 50 stomach aches. In came Mrs. Fezziwig, one vast substantial smile. In came 3 Miss Fezziwigs, beaming and lovable. In came the 6 young followers whose hearts they broke. In came all the young men and women employed in the business. In came the housemaid with her cousin the baker. In came the cook with her brother's particular friend the milkman. In came the boy from over the way, who was suspected of not having board enough from his master, trying to hide himself behind the girl next door, but one who was proved to have had her ears pulled by her mistress. In they all came, one after another, some shyly, some boldly, some gracefully, some awkwardly, some pushing, some pulling. In they all came, anyhow and everyhow. Away they all went, 20 couple at once, hands half round and back again the other way, down the middle and up again, round and round, in various stages of affectionate grouping. Old top couple always turning up in the wrong place, new top couples starting off again as soon as they all got there, all top couples at last, and not a bottom one to help them. When this result was brought about, old Fezziwig, clapping his hands to stop the dance, cried out, "Well done!" And the fiddler plunged his hot face into a pot of porter, especially provided for that purpose. But, scorning rest, upon his reappearance, he instantly began again, though there were no dancers yet, as if the other fiddler had been carried home, exhausted on a shutter, and he were a brand new man, resolved to beat him out of sight, or perish. There were more dances, and there were forfeits, and more dances, and there were cake and negus, and there was a great piece of cold roast, and there was a great piece of cold boiled, and there were mince pies, and plenty of beer. But the great effect of the evening came after the roast and boiled, when the fiddler, an artful dog, mind, the sort of man who knew his business better than you or I could have told it to him, struck up Sir Roger de Coverley. Then old Fezziwig stood out to dance with Mrs. Fezziwig, top couple too, with a good stiff piece of work cut out for them, 3 or 4 and 20 pair of partners, people who were not to be trifled with, people who would dance and had no notion of walking. But if they had been twice as many, 4 times, old Fezziwig would have been a match for them, and so would Mrs. Fezziwig. As to her, she was worthy to be his partner in every sense of the term. If that's not high praise, tell me higher. I'll use it. A positive light appeared to issue from Fezziwig's calves. They shone in every part of the dance like moons. Oh no, you need that to read. Okay, I lost where we were.
Calves shone like...
Moons, yeah. You couldn't have predicted at any given time what would have become of them next. And when old Fezziwig and Mrs. Fezziwig had all gone through the dance, advance and retire, both hands to your partner, bow and curtsy, corkscrew, thread the needle, and back again to your place, Fezziwig cut so deftly that he appeared to wink with his legs, and came back upon his feet without a stagger. When the clock struck 11, this domestic ball broke up. Mr. and Mrs. Fezziwig took their stations, one on either side of the door, and shaking hands with every person individually as he or she went out, wished him or her a Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
I really can't look away from the screen. No. Oh, here it is. When everybody had retired but the two prentices, they did the same to them, and thus the cheerful voices died away, and the lads were left to their beds, which were under a counter in the back shop. During the whole of this time, Scrooge had acted like a man out of his wits. His heart and soul were in the scene, and with his former self. He corroborated everything, remembered everything, enjoyed everything, and underwent the strangest agitation. It was not until now, when the bright faces of his former self and Dick were turned from them, that he remembered the ghost, and became conscious that it was looking full upon him, while the light upon its head burnt very clear.
A small matter to make these silly folks so full of gratitude.
Small? The spirit signed to him to listen to the two apprentices, who were pouring out their hearts in praise of Fezziwig, and when he had done so, said, "Why, is it not? He has spent but a few... Oh, sorry, that's you.
Why, is it not? He has spent but a few pounds of your mortal money, 3 or 4 perhaps. Is that so much that he deserves this praise?"
It isn't that. It isn't that, spirit. He has the power to render us happy or unhappy, to make our service light or burdensome, a pleasure or a toil. Say that his power lies in words and looks, in things so slight and insignificant that it is impossible to count them up. What then? The happiness he gives is quite as great as if it cost a fortune. He felt the spirit's glance and stopped.
What is the matter?
Nothing particular.
Something, I think.
No, I should like to be able to say a word or two to my clerk just now, that's all. His former self turned down the lamps and gave utterance to the wish, and Scrooge and the ghost again stood side by side in the open air.
My time grows short. Quick.
This was not addressed to Scrooge or to anyone he could see, but it produced an immediate effect. For again Scrooge saw himself. He was older now, a man in the prime of his life. His face had not the harsh and rigid lines of later years, but it had began to wear the signs of care and avarice. There was an eager, greedy, restless motion in the eye, which showed the passion that had taken root, and where the shadow of the growing tree would fall. He was not alone, but sat by the side of a fair young girl in a morning dress, in whose eyes were tears, which sparkled in the light that shone out of the ghost of Christmas past. "It matters little, to you very little. Another idol has displaced me, and if it can cheer and comfort you in the time to come, as I would have tried to do, I would have no just cause to grieve." What idol has displeased you?" "A golden one." "This is the even-handed dealing of the world. There's nothing on which it is so hard as poverty, and there is nothing it professes to condemn with such
severity as the pursuit of wealth.
You fear the world too much. All your other hopes have merged into the hope of being beyond the chance of its sordid reproach. I have seen your nobler aspirations fall off one by one until the master passion, gain, engrosses you. Have I not?
What then? Even if I have grown so much wiser, what then? I am not changed toward you.
She shook her head.
Am I? Our contract is an old one. It was made when we were both poor and content to be so in good season. We could improve our worldly fortune by our patient industry. You are changed. When it was made, you were another man. I was a boy. Your own feeling tells you that you are not what you are. I am. That which promised happiness when we were not one and heart is fraught with misery now that we are two. How often, how keenly have I thought this? I will not say. It is enough that I have thought of it, and I can release you. Have I ever sought release? In words, no, never. In what then? In changed nature, in an altered spirit, in another atmosphere of life, another hope has its great end. In everything that made my love and any worth of value in your sight, if this had never been between us, tell me, would you seek me out and try to win me now? No.
He seemed to yield to the justice of this supposition, in spite of himself. But he said with a struggle,
You think not?
I would gladly think otherwise if I could. Heaven knows, but I have learned a truth like this. I know how strong and irresistible it must be. But if you were free today, tomorrow, yesterday, could even I believe you would choose a dowerless girl? You, who in your very confidence with her weigh everything by gain, or choosing her, if for a moment you were false enough to your one guiding principle to do so, I do not know that your repentance and regret would surely follow. I do, and I release you with a full heart for the love of him you once were. He was about to speak, but with her head turned from him, she resumed. You may. The very memory of what is past makes me hope you will have pain in this. A very, very brief time, and you will dismiss the recollection of it gladly as an unprofitable dream from which it happened well that you awoke. May you be happy in the life that you have chosen. She left him, and they parted.
Spirit, show me no more. Conduct me home. Why do you delight to torture me?
One shadow more.
No, no more. No more. I don't wish to see it. Show me no more.
But the relentless ghost pinioned him in both his arms and forced him to observe what happened next. They were in another scene and place, a room not very large or handsome, but full of comfort. Near to the winter fire sat a beautiful young girl, so like the last that Scrooge believed it was the same, until he saw her, now a comely matron, sitting opposite her daughter. The noise in this room was perfectly tumultuous, for there were more children there than Scrooge in his agitated state of mind could count, and unlike the celebrated herd in the poem, they were not 40 children conducting themselves like one, but every child was conducting itself like 40. The consequences were uproarious beyond belief, but no one seemed to care. On the contrary, the mother and daughter laughed heartily, and enjoyed it very much, and the latter, soon beginning to mingle in the sports, got pillaged by the young brigands most ruthlessly. What would I not have given to be one of them? Though I never could have been so rude. No, I wouldn't for all the wealth of the world have crushed that braided hair and torn it down, and for the precious little shoe, I wouldn't have plucked it off, God bless my soul, to save my life. As to measuring her waist in sport as they did, bold young brood, I couldn't have done it. I should have expected my arm to have grown round it for a punishment, and never come straight again. And yet I should have dearly liked, I own, to have touched her lips, to have questioned her that she might have opened them, to have looked upon the lashes of her downcast eyes and never raised a blush, to have let loose waves of hair, an inch of which would be a keepsake beyond price. In short, I should have liked, I do confess, to have the lightest license of a child, and yet to have been man enough to know its value. But now a knocking at the door was heard, and such a rush immediately ensued that she, with laughing face and plundered dress, was borne toward it, the center of a flushed and boisterous group, just in time to greet the father, who came home attended by a man laden with Christmas toys and presents. Then the shouting and the struggling and the onslaught that was made on the defenseless porter, the scaling him with chairs for ladders, to dive into his pockets to spoil him of brown paper parcels held on tightly by his cravat, hug him round his neck, pommel his back, and kick his legs with irrepressible affection, the shouts of wonder and delight with which the development of every package was received, the terrible announcement that the baby had been taken in the act of putting a doll's frying pan into his mouth, and was more suspected of having swallowed a fictitious turkey glued on a wooden platter, the immense relief of finding this was a false alarm, the joy and gratitude and ecstasy, they are all indescribable alike. It is enough by degrees that the children and their emotions got out the parlor, and by one stair at a time, up to the top of the house, where they went to bed, and so subsided. And now Scrooge looked on more attentively than ever, when the master of the house, having his daughter leaning fondly on him, sat down with her and her mother at his own fireside, and when he thought that such another creature, quite as graceful and full of promise, might have called him father, and been a springtime in the haggard winter of his life, his sight grew very dim indeed. Belle, I saw an old friend this afternoon.
Who was it?
Guess.
How can I? I don't know. Mr. Scrooge.
Mr. Scrooge it was. I passed his office window, and as it was not shut up, and he had a candle inside, I could scarcely help seeing him. His partner lies upon the point of death, I hear, and there he sat, alone, quite alone in the world, I do believe. Spirit, remove me from this place!
I told you that these are the shadows of things that have been, and that they are what they are. Do not blame me.
Remove me! I cannot bear it! He turned upon the ghost, and seeing that it looked upon him with a face in which, in some strange way, there were fragments of all the faces it had shown him, wrestled with it. Leave me! Take me back! Haunt me no longer! In the struggle, if it could be called a struggle, by which the ghost with no visible resistance on its own part was undisturbed by any effort of its adversary, Scrooge observed that its light was burning high and bright, and dimly connecting that with its influence over him, he seized the extinguisher cap, and by a sudden action pressed it down upon its head. The spirit dropped beneath it, so that the extinguisher covered its whole form, but though Scrooge pressed it down with all his force, he could not hide the light, which streamed from under it in an unbroken flood upon the ground. He was conscious of being exhausted and overcome by an irresistible drowsiness, and further, of being in his own bedroom. He gave the calf a parting squeeze, his hand relaxed, and had barely time to reel to bed before he sank into a heavy sleep. And that concludes Stave 2 of A Christmas Carol. We'll read Stave 3 tomorrow night with Mr. Hardluck as a Ghost of Christmas Present. Thank you so much, Badger, for joining us. It was fantastic.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
So I guess I should probably play some Minecraft now because I still have to record for my episode.
Yeah.
But thank you so much. And everybody stick around. We're going to go ahead and we got to go to Scar's. Apparently Scar has a thing. He gave me coordinates and I need to go to that and record it.
Okay.
But I wanted to do this first because if we go over there, we blow up Bodum, then we wouldn't get to actually do the Christmas Carol.
Yeah, true.
So thank you so much, Badger.
You are very welcome.
Alrighty. So, folks, Yurgi says, Badger, are you okay? I didn't really truly extinguish her light. It's inextinguishable, obviously.
Apparently so.
Yeah, can you, do I need to get, I think I need to get up so Badger can get out. Sorry.
Thank you.
Yeah, there's a reason we had music on the first time we did this, and we gave ourselves like 7 minutes. But I think I can reset things for me very quickly. Okay. Boom. There we go. Okay. So over to Bodum we go. Over to Bodum we go. Okay. So let's see. We've got some very kind comments here. Oh, thank you. Yes, I forgot I had the cap. Yeah, so now we're going to play some Minecraft like professionals. Okay. So yeah, thank you to everybody. If you're enjoying the show, feel free to tip. Tips are welcome via paypal.me/JoeHills. Yeah, I had a lot of days off earlier this month because I was sick, and so anything that y'all want to contribute would definitely be appreciated. Okay. We gotta, don't love that. Okay. So, that sure is something. Okay. Oh, let's go to Bodum. Let's all go to Bodum. Let's all go to Bodum. How are we for time? Should we... Yeah, let's just go. Rosewolf says, Joe, you and Badger did great. Thank you. Okay, so let me find the thing from Scar with the coordinates we're supposed to go to. It is at... I'm gonna copy and paste these into here. 941 negative. Okay. Okay. I think we need to turn our brightness back up. Okay, there we go. I didn't actually watch Mystery Pinball Theater 3000 last night because, so I took my daughter on a trip that I had promised her out to East Tennessee for a couple days, and so we didn't actually. I wasn't able to watch Mystery Pinball Theater 3000, but yeah, it was a good time because she just finished school on Thursday. And so I had booked a 2-night trip out in the mountains, just to kind of get away. And I did that. So that was one of those things I planned that months ago before I knew I was going to be taking like a week off from being sick at the beginning of December. So once again, I'm not joking about tips being welcome via paypal.me/JoeHills. That is definitely appreciated. But yeah, and for those of y'all who do or who have contributed and are always like, buy Corinne something nice. Don't worry, she got a lot of nice things on the trip. Got some chocolate lava cake with ice cream and I'm trying to remember that I think that of all the things that I got her, that was probably her favorite. But okay, so we need to go to 941 negative 553. 941. Okay, so it's this way. Hey, Scatman Slaws tips 5. He says, can you do the Iliad after you do A Christmas Carol? Well, we're kind of in the middle of A Christmas Carol right now, but I could just be like, an angry man. There is my story. The bitter rancor of Achilles, prince of the house of Peleus, which brought 1,000 troubles upon the Achaean host. Many a strong soul it sent down to Hades, and left the heroes themselves a prey to dogs and carrion birds, while the will of God moved on to fulfillment. But anyway, you know, probably not a good use of my time. Oh, no, moon's rising already. There's no beds over here, are there? Okay, we need to actually we need to go to bed. We need to go somewhere with a bed. But either way, that puts us 15 away from the next face camera expansion. Tips are welcome via paypal.me/JoeHills and YouTube Super Chat. Thank you, Louisa, for another 5. That's going to put us 10 away from the next expansion. Scar has a bed? I didn't know that. Well, let's just go to the resupply egg because it's nearby and has a bed for sure. But, okay. Do I have that tattooed on my hands? Yeah, absolutely. Somebody says all the beds in Bodom are trapped. Okay, see, that's a good reason for me to not use them. Yeah, the world is falling laggily apart. Let's go to Bodom. That's probably a bad choice. Probably a bad choice. Okay. How's this looking over here? That's fine. Oh, we do need to measure the moon, too, because I haven't measured the moon for a couple days. It's Minecraft. Where we're going, we don't need blocks. We're actually at 80% geopacity right now, which is normally kind of more over here. It's just because we had Badger and Shot. I had it. But yeah, so we are $10 away from 70% geopacity and $30 away from the Tony Stark helmet cam. I've got the camera a little bit high because I had the Plinko board set up also, just as a... There we go. Okay. Okay, so we were looking, I think we were going this way. I'm going to send Scar a quick message and see if he's around to, because he had said he might be willing to record if he's free. He might already have gone to bed. Uh-oh. Don't love that. That's a lot of airtime. Say things set up for Christmas. Well, I actually just got back from taking my daughter to East Tennessee, so I have not had a lot of time to set things up for Christmas. Sorry. Okay. So we're supposed to go to negative 540, so 941, negative 543. So that means it's generally this way. Dang it. So it's definitely the, so negative 943. So it's over here. Okay, I think this is the entrance. Yeah, because I had sent Scar a message about coming out here to record 2 nights ago. Yeah, let's, okay, we'll get this on camera. Start recording. I call this HermitCraft face camera off mode. Where is it? There it is. Boom. Okay. HermitCraft Season 8, Episode 19? Segment Charlie, I think. Take 1. And action. Well, here I am at Off-World Escapes. Escape the world. Oh, good, I'm in a doorway during the earthquake. That's just good sense. Escape the world with your life or favorite pet or item. Well, you know what? I'm looking at this, and this is no way this is ADA compliant. We're just going to light that up. There's some high contrast text. Look at that. Boom. Perfect. Escape the world with your favorite pet or item or life. Well, I'm not sure that I really need to escape the world because, like, this moon thing is okay. But, I mean, it could be worse. I mean, at the same time, though, I feel like I owe it to Diamond Hooves to make sure that he is taken care of. So let's go ahead and see what we got here. Hey there, miners and crafters. Earth-World Escapes, a Swag & Co. is a part of Bodum Inc. Looking to save a favorite item or pet from the approaching moon? We will transport your favorite pet or item off-world to protect it from the ultimate destruction via a state-of-the-art Swag & Rocket. Take your pet or item around the back of the building to the Off-World Escapes warehouse and animal pen. Payment will be charged once the pet or item is safely delivered to you off-world. Legal disclaimer, the rocket has never been tested or inspected by HEP. The Swag & Co. is not responsible for rapid, unscheduled assembly of the rocket in flight. The rocket currently does not exist for tours or inspections. Well, I mean, that's a little bit suspicious, but, I mean, Diamond Hooves got rich, you know, buying GameStop stock, so, like, I mean, it's not like he's especially wary. Let's go ahead and, let's see where the stable is, back here, and then we'll go get Diamond Hooves, make sure that we can, I want to make sure I know where I'm going. Okay, so this is Moon and Goose. What does this say? Place items or animals in warehouse. Very cool. Fence posts and leads. Thanks, Scar. I'll bring my own fence posts and leads, I guess. Off-World Escapes animal pen. Cool. Cool. Well, I guess we'll go get Diamond Hooves and we'll be right back. Time skip. Stop recording. HermitCraft video recording mode disabled. Hey, we just got a tip rolling in via PayPal from Sarah. Thank you very much, Sarah, for the 5. That is going to put us 5 away from the next face camera expansion. Okay. Didn't Pearl say glowing text cause lag? Well, people need to be able to read the text, and I'm also not sure that that's true. I'm pretty sure that the moon flying is causing more lag than anything else. Also, I really think that my mic settings are way up. Input, manage sound device properties. Yeah, okay, it's at 87. Dang it. Yeah, I was like, why is my mic so yeah, there we go. So now we turn this back up here. Boom, that's where it should be. Oh no, lag and Bodum. What can we do? Oh boy. Scatman Slaz says, I thought you sounded beautiful. Are you talking about the Christmas Carol? Yeah, because we do have, hey, welcome, Moga. Yeah. Hey, we just got another tip rolling in. Why am I looking at the ceiling? Got another tip rolling in via PayPal here. Let's see who that's from. From James. Thank you very much, James, for an even 20. Boom. We were 5 away from the next face camera expansion, so now we are 5 away from the one after this. Here we go. It's time to expand. Joe ho 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 host. Do 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 do. Lowering that opacity now to 70%. There we go. It's me. It's Joe. A Joe. Right here. I am right here. In my hat for Christmas time. So let's go ahead and I didn't know I was supposed to bring an animal. Scar did not give us good instructions for this. But that's fine. I know he's got his own stuff going on. Christmas is coming up over there too, so you know, it's time to buy everybody gifts. Hey, I had a question. I had a question for y'all. Do y'all like games that you can play with streamers? Because I found a new game on Twitter the other day, and I don't normally play games that have like random lobbies and stuff, but like it's a game that's not very popular. So I think that if we joined at the same time, like if we hit play game at the same time, a lot of us would end up in the same lobby. And so it is a battle royale style game. If you're familiar with the Japanese film Battle Royale, that's about basically a bunch of teenagers on this island having to fight to the death. And the idea is that parts of the island are basically the island becomes slowly more uninhabitable. And if you are in one of the red zone or hot zone areas or whatever on the map, then you'll get blown up, basically. So everybody has to keep moving, right? So I haven't played a lot of Battle Royale games. I played, other than the original Minecraft Battle Royale. But there's a new one out that is a Scrabble-based Battle Royale game called Babble Royale. Babble. Although they could have done Babl or Babel if you could use multiple languages. Oh, no, the sun's not down. The moon's just... It's fine. So, it's a Battle Royale style Scrabble game, and it's free to play on Steam. And I was looking at that, and I was like, this is really cool. But I'm kind of like... Because I've been thinking about, like, what's some fun stuff that I could play with y'all? And that's something that's kind of, like, interesting and strange. But I've played about 10 rounds so far just to get a sense of it. And it's not ad-supported or anything. It's, basically, they've got this... Could I share the Project Gutenberg link again? Yeah, that's a great point. I can. So it's not ad supported. They have like in-game purchases, but they also have an option where it's like pay $60 and get everything we ever make in the game forever. And so I'm probably going to play the game a few more times, and if I like it, I think I'm going to ask for that as one of my Christmas gifts. Because the thing is though, like with a company that's like starting out like this, there's a chance that that this game will only be viable for the next like month, right? Like sometimes with games like this, it's like, oh, it's briefly like super in vogue or popular, but then everybody all of a sudden is just like, oh yeah, I played that for a month. And so one of the things I hate about having my day job, which I don't have now, one of the things I always hated about having my day job is whenever a game came out where everybody's like, oh my gosh, you have to play this game, it's the best. And then like a month later, I'd finally have time to play it, and everybody would be like, oh, we're done playing that now. And I'm like, ooh, here's a game that just came out that might be popular for only 1 month, but I actually have time to play it because Christmas time is coming up. And so I can goof off a little bit and not feel too guilty about it. You know. Because, like, the other thing is I kind of want to do some, like, goofy streams kind of around Christmas. So that people... Because one of the things I've run into is sometimes people... Wait, is this... Did Diamond Hooves end up in here? Sometimes, sometimes people get, like, really kind of weird about, like, oh, I hate that you're streaming December 23rd because I have to go see my family. And I'm like, well, you know, not everybody gets to see their family. And so I'm kind of streaming for the people who can't. But then they're like, oh, but I still feel like I'm missing out. And it's like, well, maybe if I do weird stuff right around the holidays, people won't feel so, I don't know, weird about missing the stream if they, like, do get to see, you know. Ryan says Fall Guys fell out of fashion pretty fast. Yeah, that's the sort of thing I'm talking about. Like, I'm shocked I got to play Among Us before it fell out of fashion. Because that's the sort of game that normally would only last a month, and then by the time that I got to play it, it's like... Okay, well, so do I need to put something in the book, or do I just leave the animal here? Okay, so here we go. We're gonna bring it back around. Whoops, other view. And we're gonna start recording again. HermitCraft Season 8, Episode 19, Segment Delta, Take 1. Do. Well, hello, Moon. Hello. I forget the name of the cat already. I hope you are happy to meet your new roommate, Diamond Hooves. Because, you know what? He's excited to meet you. Look, there he is. Just hooving and hollering. So, great. Okay, now that we've dealt with that, we haven't actually dealt with the fact that I'm pretty sure Scar is trying to turn the moon into his new largest hat. And, you know, I might not get a chance to confront him about it. But we'll have to see, because he's a little bit hard to track down. I actually do need to go measure the moon at least once, because I'm pretty sure it's gotten bigger, and I've been out of town for a few days. So let's go get on that now. Time skip. Oh, Goozy. That was Goozy the kitty. Gotcha. Cat Goozy, happy is he there with diamond hooves, as well as moon. La da 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 da. Do 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 do. No worries, left my horse diamond hooves in the pen. Okay, cool. It's Gemini's goose and Cub's moon. How could it be a scam? It's payment on delivery. Oh, I have so much fun doing this. Okay. I should have left the recorder on by accident improvising. I actually did leave the recorder on by accident, so maybe I'll use that. I'll consider using that in the episode. I don't have time to heist any derp coins. I just spent 2 hours reading Charles Dickens, and now I need to go measure the moon. We have work to do here, people. There's work to do. Yi says, do you realize by putting your horse there, you're promising to give him all the diamonds you ever made? I've never actually made any diamonds. I usually found them. I'm not like Superman with the crushing coal thing. So I'm not too worried. This really sounds like Kal-El of King's problem. Okay. I forgot to throw it in the bowl. That would have helped. Oh, that's going straight in the lava. Wait, did Cub build something huge over there? I saw something huge in the distance. Maybe it was just the trees sticking up because of the view distance change. Okay. Whew. We're good. We're good people. So maybe we should clean this up too while we're here. Yeah, let's do that. I'm just gonna go through this door in case Cleo trapped me again. Good. What are we here to do? Oh yeah, measure the moon. So we need a sign. At the very least. Okay. And we need sticks. Face camera off. Start recording. Let's maybe start over here. Just waiting for the moon for a minute. It's so big now, it takes too long to actually climb. Excuse me. Had a lot of caffeine, sugar, and what's it? Carbonation. Had to get my energy level up for that Dickensian reading. Okay. So here we are where the sidewalk ends and levitation begins. As you can see, the moon there definitely rising behind us. We need to figure out how wide this aperture is and take another measurement. I've been gone for a few days, getting my daughter outside a little bit out in East Tennessee, having a good time with her. Now that the school year is, well, not the school year, but the calendar, because, you know, they have like a spring semester too, but her fall semester is wrapped up now. So this looks like we're definitely bigger than we were, but, like, I mean, this isn't necessarily cataclysmic. I mean, it's a lot bigger than it should be. It's a lot bigger than it should be. Okay. Well, we'll wait until the moon hits the midpoint on the horizon there. So currently we are like 3 of the moon's pixel blocks up. Those should not be that large. It's fine. It's fine. We're just going to wait until we have that neatly aligned with our post here. And there is your midpoint. I'm having to kind of estimate a little bit because these posts are now blocked by the hills. I didn't think that was going to be in my way when I built this. That was never considered a strong possibility at all. But okay. So yeah, as the moon is climbing in the sky, it's pretty clear. Yeah, we're in about the right spot here. So, what's today's date? December 18th, 2021 at 23:29 U.S. Central. And that's middle of block. Boom. We're gonna light it up. Okay, so that's... Well, I mean, so how much would it have to be to fill my entire vision? Oh, wait. I mean, it's pretty much filling my entire vision. Okay, well... That's not ideal. That is not ideal. Maybe somebody should do something rising into nation ? Rising me ? I wonder if I can make this someone else's problem. Time skip. Okay. I think that's a good take. What do y'all think? Yeah, Yurgi, I was really hoping that I would get lucky on the timing there, and it seems to have paid off. Because I didn't get the timing on the phantoms that I wanted for the Scrooge thing. So yeah, we're not gonna get better than that on the timing. So we're gonna use that take. Honestly, I was kind of tempted to keep doing takes until we got that timing, so I'm just gonna call it there. Okay, cool. So let's see, everybody. I hope that y'all have had a pleasant evening. Once again, tips are welcome via paypal.me/JoeHills and YouTube Super Chat. We are about to wrap up the stream, but I do want to remind you this show is supported by viewers like you. And once again, when I planned to take 2 days off with my daughter to get out of town, I didn't know I was going to be sick for most of the beginning of the month. And so, yeah, viewer support is definitely appreciated. Let's see here what we've got going on in the broader world of Twitch. Okay, well, it looks like ShambleCraft launched today, and Sammy Higgins
There we go.
is whoops, I didn't know she was unmuted, is going to be playing on their new 118 SMP. Let's go ahead and play the outro tune, if I can find it, and then go say hi to Sammy. Okay, I don't think I clicked on it and I can't find it. Okay, I've been driving a lot today. I can't find the outro music. That's fine. So when you get over there, say howdy y'all, Joe Hills Raid here. And until next time y'all, this is Joe Hills from Nashville, Tennessee. Keep adventuring. Do 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 do.